tonight we're, in a way, we're taking note of the fact that it's 1 year exactly last Friday evening since the Minister was inducted. So you're 1 year old indeed. And we thought it would be a good idea if we had some way of masking that. And that's what we're going to do just now. Now we have a world-class broadcaster on our hands, in that way there. And without further ado, I'll just introduce Coinneach MacIomhair. And I used to say to people when they would say to me, they would say, I would like to learn Gaelic. Well, I said, the best way you can do it then is listen to program Coinneach every morning and get the best quality of Gaelic, idiomatic Gaelic, first class, on the spot. And he's also got English actually. But so tonight I'm just going to leave him to do Nandrew. And what's the name?
Eamon Andrews.
And Andrew Neil on the collar and see how he gets on with it. So we'll pass over to Coinneach MacIomhair and ask him to go ahead, and he's going to just travel over a bit of the territory, tell himself what he's going to do and see how it goes. So for that, we'll just introduce the pair of them and ask them to get on with it.
Well, if this is on, can I thank you very much indeed, although I'm not sure that that's the right word. On Friday night, we had a gathering in Braga marking 50 years of me doing broadcasting. And I've interviewed people in many parts of the country and the world, but I cannot think of anything more daunting than to be sitting in front of my own people, interviewing my own minister, knowing that he's got every other Sunday or whatever he wants to get his own back at me. But nevertheless, this is a privileged position, and it has been a privileged position for me for many years, in that I get to ask people the kind of questions I wouldn't normally dare ask them. But I put on a face and I ask the questions anyway. And that's not what we're going to do tonight. Well, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how we get on. We'll see how we get on. Because I don't know that much about Colin, and I know a lot of you don't know about him. A lot about him either, apart from the fact that we've enjoyed him being our minister here for the last year. Can we start, Colin, at the very beginning? Where were you born?
Glasgow.
And he still hasn't lost the accent. How long were you there?
I think I was 3 or 4 when we left Glasgow. My dad was minister in Drumchapel.
Oh, and can we say also, you, after giving straight answers, don't be looking at your mother every time you say something.
If I don't look at my mother, I might say something I regret. I'm just reminding myself, Mum is here, my wife is here, and I have to be very careful in answers. But my dad was minister in Drumchapel, which was a new church at that time, late 60s in Glasgow, and I was born there. And I think I was 3 or 4 when we left Glasgow and we came up to Dingwall.
And then?
Then we moved from Dingwall to Inverness Friars, and then from there across to Stornoway. So by the time we came to Stornoway, I was 16. I was thriving in school. I was an academic genius. I had hires all over the place. The teachers all wanted me to go into further in higher education. And Ian knows I'm talking nonsense now.
I was very concerned hearing my minister telling me such a blatant lie.
But I tried. I just didn't get it. I tried in school. School just wasn't for me,
But that's fine. So we'll skim over that part then, probably for the better. But the thing is, as I was telling you the other day, one of my earliest memories is as a 4-year-old in Abercol, and standing at the end of the house, and I can't remember what my granny said, "Shaul, Shinchiol Gigavinisha." That's the minister's funeral. The car cortege going down the Advorkul call, where your father died as minister of this congregation. So Grandfather, oh, well, but I was going to come to the father. No, I wouldn't get that anywhere else.
You want to finish this conversation?
No. and that's what's good, you know, they keep it on. But your grandfather the minister here, and then some of the older people remember. Then, of course, your father was the interim moderator here also. So you have a strong family connection with this area. Unfortunately, it doesn't extend to the fact of the bloodline belonging to this area.
That's true. That's true. I guess I don't know. It's a bit of a gypsy traveller. Glasgow, Dingwall, Inverness, Stornoway. I always say Stornoway is the home port.
What I was thinking more about where your people came from.
Yes. Yeah. So Dad born in Ness, but Mum's a Roch. So
what?
Strong point connections. And but we haven't been that bit older when we moved over here. But Stornoway had always been, it was family summer, every summer we're over here. And it's always been part of our lives, even more so because Aidan's from here, of course. So she reminds me now and again that when people ask me, where are you from? I say, oh, Stornoway. She goes, no, you're not. But it's the home port and has been for a long time. So
anyway, school wasn't your forte, you were saying. What led you to the first thing you did after school?
I joined the army when I finished in Nicholson in 6th year. I did 6th year. I tried to join the junior army, but then you could join at 16. I've got a vague memory of there was a phone call that they'd lost the paperwork, surprise, surprise. I'd have to reapply, which meant by the time they processed my papers I'd be too old for the junior army, so I'd have to go to the regular army, which meant at 17 and a half I would go to what we call now adult training. So I went off after 6th year, 17 and a half, down to Cartrick. And that's what I'd always wanted to do. I just wanted to join the army. I didn't have any aspirations at all other than that at that time.
So what did you do?
I was a soldier in the 4th Royal Tank Regiment, chieftain tanks. So you were a gunner, driver and radio operator, all three. And 6.5 years with that. We were in Canada a couple of times, Cyprus, the United Nations, all over Europe because we were based in Germany still at the time. The British Army at that point in the 80s was 55,000 strong just in Germany. The army now, today, is hovering around 74,000. So it's been cut. It's almost well over half. Seems to have just vanished in these 30 or so years. So you can tell I didn't do maths.
What was it like being a child of the manse?
Pressure. I had to behave. I had to sit in the pew, don't move a muscle. Mum looks like butter wouldn't melt, but I can assure you. She used to come to church armed to the teeth. And
Sweeties.
Oh no, wooden spoon, threatening, violence. But remember, there were 6 of us in the pew. So my mother went grey. So it was the child of the I remember Inverness. Dingwall I remember, but in school age. I remember once my older brother was so badly behaved in church that my dad had to speak to him from the pulpit. I was there, but I wasn't involved. And he had to speak to him from the pulpit in Dingwall, so that my goodness, that was quite an occasion. So it was a different, but of course it meant Kenny being Sunday school, church camps, using the instructor, the old say the questions you had to do in the instructor when you're in Sunday school. So church was always part of our life, from our living area.
There are disputes, though, I know, within your family, because, I remember somebody in your family with a blue jersey and another person with a green and white striped jersey. So you weren't all in agreement all the time, were you?
No. We had, again, daft Celtic. He loved Celtic big time. I don't know how that happened. None of us know how that happened. Because we had blue at the core, all of us. So Ken bucked the trend and big Celtic fan, and that led to endless banter and chat and brotherly love.
What I mean is one gets the impression of man's life has been very I was going to say gleich and sturm, and these are words you don't understand maybe, but well, probably not obviously now, but anyway.
Did you say gleich?
Gleich, no, gleich you died. Well, so obviously, they were happy times.
Oh, they were, I mean, my goodness, they were, I think particularly Stornoway. Inverness was good too. Dingwall, we probably had a football park in the manse in these days. The garden was massive. So everybody played football bottom of the garden. It was huge. There's a house there now. The garden was so big. Then in Inverness, but Stornoway was Stornoway, and it was like off the scale. Everything was off the scale church-wise when we came to Stornoway. Even though we'd been in big, busy congregations, coming to Stornoway was different. It was a different league.
I remember when your father came to Stornoway, and I remember there was one thing there that distressed him. He didn't feel comfortable playing golf.
Oh man, yeah.
Am I right?
Oh, you're right. Again, absolutely. It was a great way to relax, apparently. But golf can be a bad friend at times. It can drive you mad. So we play a lot of golf, but our dad had a bit of an issue with relaxing on the golf course in Stornoway. He didn't want to be seen.
That's right.
If you could play golf with a paper bag over your head, he would. And he was constantly stressing if any group came behind us, oh, that was the end. You weren't just picking the ball up and move.
Was he good at golf?
It wasn't bad.
What I was thinking was if he had a bad score, he'd probably want the paper bag behind.
It wasn't bad, but we all joined a good hack round the course. We all played.
So anyway, you were in the army. You spent 6 years in the army. Were you involved with church at that time?
Yes, in terms of being home, yes. I can't speak about a church involvement in the army in my own time in Germany. It didn't happen. I know Sarja were around, but I had no engagement in Germany with any chaplains or padres. And that came back later on to come haunt me in a way, because I've got a regimental picture from that era, 89. And a regiment of 400 or so of us, and we're all in our black coveralls with the berets, and we're stood there in the regiment picture. And in the front row there's a padre, there's a guy with the cloak and the scarf and his collar. I have no idea who he was. And I've often wondered, I don't know what he hung about, what he did. He was meant to be our chaplain, we never knew he was there. And that when I began to struggle with that sense of call to go into the army chaplaincy, that was one of the main things that pushed me in. Because every regiment has a chaplain, but some of them are basically invisible. So when I was asked, when I applied, oh, who was your party? Did someone make an impression on you? It was the opposite. It was, well, there was a big invisible man there, so I thought we need to do better than that.
So when did the step from there to what led you then to go in for the ministry? When did that happen?
I came out of the army and I went down back to academia again. I was determined to get a higher, so I went to the Castle College and I did an access to degree studies course along with a whole bunch of guys, Tommy McNeil, Colin Campbell from Point, Gordon Ginger from Point. Who else was in there? There was a few in there that time. And we all did the access course because we were mature students without any hires, and if we passed the access course, Aberdeen Uni guaranteed you a place, an MA. So that's what I did. I was persuaded by Aileen.
Why did you do that then?
Well, because Aileen told me to.
Oh, why did you met her then?
We're married.
Oh, you're married?
Yes.
Oh, what's the story there then?
Oh,
Kenny,
man.
You need to go up with the minister's wife too.
Yes, so Aileen and I, we were in the same class in school, you see. Did you know that, did you?
No, that's what I was saying at the beginning. I'm going to get the chance to ask a lot of questions that people out there want to ask.
Same class in school. Well, I don't know how that is, because Aileen got a lot of hires and I didn't. The same class at that stage, I don't know. So Aileen went off to Glasgow to do teacher training when I went to the army, and we kind of crossed paths again. Aileen was by then teaching in Ireland, and back to start teaching in Lochs. When I came along and I just swept her off her feet, you see. my fluent Gaelic just won the day.
I'm almost at the end of the interview, I think. Anyway, we'll skip over that. So then you got your degree, what then? Yeah.
Well, I was going through Aberdeen Uni. Aileen and I got engaged the year I came out of the army, or just before I finished, and then we married the following year. And I did some jobs in Stornoway, and then I got into the access course because there was no direction in my life at that point. I didn't have a focus I had a vague idea of maybe being a history teacher. I failed the history higher twice, so I don't know why I thought I'd be a history teacher. But I liked history. I thought, well, do the access course. I was persuaded that it was a sensible thing to do. Off to Aberdeen Uni, kind of just chipping along, getting used to writing essays again, which was awful. That was a real shock to the system. And then we lost my dad, and that was a real blow. That set us back big time, because I was struggling with a sense of calling at that point. I didn't know it. Okay, I think I did know it, but I was denying it.
How did you become a Christian then?
Yes, Kenny, yeah. And I'll tell you what challenged me in Aberdeen at that stage of my life, was I was in Aberdeen Uni with about 8 or 9 boys who were all studying for the Church of Scotland ministry. Tommy McNeil being one of them, Murdo Campbell was in Tottenham Carlevy for a number of years, Scotty Cameron, John Lackey, John Murdo who's up at Nest, there was a whole bunch of them, Fahy, and it challenged me that they had this clear desire and purpose and mission in life, and I didn't, none of it. And it challenged me. By the end of that year, I was struggling with a sense of call, but I felt absolutely not a chance. Son of the manse, no way. I know that I'm not capable, not suitable, not gifted, nothing. So I just suppressed it and thought, anyway, remember at the time thinking, well, I'll just go to Dad with this eventually, but then he died so suddenly, and that crutch just whoosh, gone. But it sharpened the mind. It made me realise that I was just kind of, I was just playing with time, and I realised we think we've got forever. We all think we've got forever, and that made me wake up to that. So the following year, about a year later, I submitted an application to the Presbyterian Lewis to become a candidate to the ministry, and I honestly thought I wouldn't be accepted at that point. I didn't think I'd be accepted, and I was, and I had to continue then in Aberdeen to finish my degree, and then go to Free Church College, as it was called then. It's now Edinburgh Theological Seminary. So I went down there, and we went down there 1997 to 2000. Graduated from Free Church College in 2000.
You were mentioning about your dad, and not like you did, but we all shared in the shock of that, because he was the interim moderator here at that time before the ND came here, and it was an awful shock to us all at that time. So how long then did this struggle go on? Do you think?
Maybe 2 years, a year and a half. I couldn't reconcile myself with it. I thought, this is wrong. I felt that for months. I said, this is of me. This is not of the Lord. This is me. This is not right. And I didn't talk to anyone about it for a long time. And it just got in there. It was deep before I did speak about it. And, eventually, I think I applied because I felt I had no other option. At the end of the day, if the church say no, well, I've applied and they've discerned that I wasn't right. That's the mindset I had. It was a really emotional time. Emotions are all over the place. And so a year later, after we lost our dad, my application went through. And so I did my first podium, was in the seminary in Stornoway. That would have been 96, possibly, end of 1996. And so I've just been learning ever since, my word.
And what was it like, you said you weren't an academic, and yet you went to the Free Church College, and anybody I know who's been there, they tell me the terrible things about Greek and Hebrew and things like that.
Sailed it, Kenny. Scooshed it.
What kind of never got here with tales like this?
It was
hard.
Oh, it was torture. It was. I mean, you have to engage with the biblical languages, and then you're like, oh. Aberdeen Uni, in my experience, was no preparation for the theology course we had with the college. It was so intense. It was full on, but there were 3 dissertations in Hebrew in first year and Greek second year, I think. It was full on, and then you were out on Sundays as well. The church went through a split. We were in college, so they needed to be out because there were vacancies all over the place, and they needed preachers, and so we were really probably pushed far further than we should have been at that stage, learning literally on your feet. So it was a tough time for the whole denomination then, of course, but we got through it and called to Muirvord, capital of the Highlands.
Before we come to Muirvord, you have professors, well-known people in the college there, and we think of them in terms of the image we have of them. But are you trying to tell me that they presented a different side when they're in front of you and you're giving you exams and this kind of thing and testing you?
Yeah, we did question their conversion. We wondered if they were actually Christians because they asked us to learn masses and masses of, like John Elman, an absolute academic genius, Donny Foote. You would sit in his class and just think, wow. The first class Donny Foote said to us, if you don't have your Greek New Testament and your Westminster Confession of Faith on your desk, I will assume you're not taking my course seriously. So we're like, oh, Greek. Don't think we've got a Greek in here as well. But of course he was saying it's the biblical language. We don't go to an English version, we go to the Greek. I was full on like Kenny, we were sweating away there thinking, please don't ask me anything. Probably spend most days praying not to be asked a question. Certainly first and second year. By third year you think, I'll just say whatever comes to mind. But then you discerned a bit more, and there was a lot. I mean, the college then was quite small. The student body now is huge. So it was an intense learning experience, and we had the best of the best. Jonelle and Donny Foote. Fantastic.
Also, I've spoken to others who've been to the college, and they tell a tale that most of us aren't aware of, that financially it is a very hard time for people. Did you find it that way too? Or had you stored it up enough from your army days?
I married into money. I married into money. We looked daft, but I tell you, being a teacher, they had their own car, everything, and all found sorted here.
Well, I'm just Kenneth Ferguson isn't here, but I don't think, and I'm saying Robert Smith telling me they were upstairs in Cumberley Bank Avenue. No, they weren't. They were up there, and actually a lady from Upper Call lived on the bottom one, and she regularly gave them food, Belankion, and she was married to a guy called Lachie McKinnon. But then the thing was, they had so little that if they saw somebody come downstairs and they thought it was going to one or the other, they'd go to the other, hey, have you got the biscuits? They didn't have enough money to have biscuits, their own biscuits. Some people found it very, very hard going at the time. But anyway,
we were all right in that side, Kenny. The stress we had was we went into a church flat on Slateford Road, 1 bedroom flat, 3 stories up, no central heating, and it was, when we arrived, it was a pigsty. It hadn't been looked after, and we couldn't move in. So we had our removal van out in the road. I was on crutches at the time, couldn't walk properly, and it was a bad start. So they had to gut the flat, carpet and paint it. Luckily for us, Ian's sister was living in Edinburgh. So we went there for the first.
Why were you on the crutches?
I did my knee playing football. Did I tell you I was playing for Arts under 18, 1986? We didn't get to that, did we? No, back didn't have a team that year.
No, we glossed over very quickly because your father played for Bath, I think.
Did he?
I think himself, Jummer Donochan, Neil Hamish, and also a guy who's still living in Golspie, Kenny Lowan. He spent his life in America, but he's living in Golspie now.
But back then, of course, the big thing was to play for the Nicholson.
Oh, right.
They played for the districts, but the top players played in the Nicholson. Whereas when we went through school, if you played for Nick, yes, because nobody else would give you a game.
Is that? I never mind that.
We won the double in '86, by the way. Lady World Cup, beat Point in the semi, and then we destroyed Oaks in the final. I don't remember back up the team then.
They probably wanted to give you a chance.
Possibly.
No, but that's the good thing here. Also, things I mean, I'll pull your leg about your point blood and all the rest of it. But things. As a community, we understand that.
Yes.
We have Fiavaga, and that's largely gone. Teasing each other, and it's good for you just to have a laugh, because the thing is. But then, of course, when anybody kind of attacks us both, we're both defending each other.
Yes.
But so then, anyway, you went to Free Church College. No idea, I guess, and you did get a call to Muir of Ord.
Yeah, that's the thing. You go through it, and you're intensely focused on the third year, but you don't know. You can't. The church is very strict on this. If you're a student and you're not licensed, you're not eligible. So a congregation can't talk to you officially unless you're licensed. You're licensed in June, and then of course there was a bit of a scramble because of the split and everything else going on. So it was a bit of it is an anxious time. You come to the end of your studies, you're focused on finishing, and then thinking, what's next? Lord, we didn't know. And then Muir of Ord became vacant a year earlier because Kenny and I came to Stornoway. 1999 we came over to Stornoway. Or was it 98? 99 I think. So they were vacant as we finished college, and they called me, and how fortunate we were. We had an amazing opportunity. Brilliant.
How long were you in Muir of Ord?
5 years.
5 years, were you? It's a nice place, Muir of Ord.
Beautiful place. Far nicer than Dingwall. Oh my goodness, Dingwall's just not good. But Bewley's not bad. I'll give Bewley, you've got to admit, Bewley's quite nice, but it's just, we had a co-op in Muir of Ord, you see. They just had that posh weed in Scotland.
Why do you call it Urry?
I don't know. I wish they wouldn't.
What?
Nobody knows what Urry is. And then you see on the Kiltern, where's that? They keep referring to these ancient parish names. So that'll be the old parish of Urry.
Okay.
Nobody knows what that is, so we never refer to it as Urry. Muir of Ord and Strathconan, which is 20 miles up the way. They linked Strathconan to Muir of Ord the night I accepted the call. Can you believe that? I accepted the call, and then sat down, and Derek Lamb was still in Roskeen at this point. And he said, Mr. MacLeod, have you ever heard of Strathconan? I was like, no. You're about to. And they linked it with Muir of Ord. So I was landed with a very small congregation, 20 miles from Muir of Ord, up the glen, one way up, one way back. Oh, it was torturous. You're up there and back every second Sunday. But it was also kind of formative as well. You learn.
Well, it was for the time,
Yes.
but that time came to an end, and then you moved on to another adventure.
Yeah, I came into the manse one day to Aileen, and I was going over a beautiful home. Church is really good with lots of things going on in the church. It's been real encouragement and blessing, and things were growing and going in the right way, generally. And I came in one day and said to Aileen, I think God's calling me back to the army. And that went down like a lead balloon. She thought. But we both thought maybe this will pass. And it was a very, very similar experience to my call to the ministry. In fact, just the slow burning, it wouldn't go away. And I thought, is this of me? Is this me wanting to, why on earth I left the army in 92. I didn't have the slightest inkling I'd ever be back. And this was now 2004, and I'm writing to the Chaplain General, having discovered there's a chaplain's department, Royal Chaplain's department, and I wrote to him and made an inquiry. So we went from there, and it was a long process, and that was very stressful, because because of the knee, I had to get a secondary medical opinion, and then we were in, and so I had to process the application without telling the congregation, and that was very hard. To then stand up on a Sunday morning and say to them that I was leaving, because I felt God's call to the army. It was a really emotional blubberfest that day. It wasn't hard, it wasn't easy, because they'd been so good to us, things had gone so well, and then we were, but I felt it was God's call, and I remember saying at the end, if I don't do this, I'll be disobeying God, and no blessing can come from that. And that's how we went forward to the chaplain's department, back in the army.
And in many ways, it's that time of your life that people will find most interesting, because you did a lot, experienced a lot, and probably learned a lot too.
Very much so. Basic training, chaplaincy style, was a month and a bit at Sandhurst, Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, where they do the professionally qualified officers course, otherwise referred to as the Vickers and Tarts course. Don't know why, but that's because everyone goes to physios, doctors, dentists, vets, ministers, vicars. Anyone with a professional qualification who's coming into the forces is commissioned off the square at Sandhurst by doing this PQO, professional qualification. So it's a compressed look at life. So you do loads of drill, loads of fitness. They did loads of weapon handling. We didn't touch weapons. Geneva Convention forbids British Army chaplains from handling weapons or non-combatants. So when they were off doing ranges, we were doing other things, but it was a real introduction to life in the army. And there's a lot of them there had never been in before, so for them it was all brand new.
But you free church by background, but you were there with people from all other denominations as well. What was that like?
It was terrible. I mean, I had to realise that they were all wrong. How do I tell them they're all wrong and I'm right, And so I had no friends. And by the time I finished Sandhurst, my best pal was a Roman Catholic priest from County Clare who had never spoken to a living Protestant in his life. He said, I've only ever buried one, I've never actually spoken to her. And he would ask me about the Free Church, and we compared notes, and we were like night and day. And yet, he was a living embodiment of Father Ted. So he really was, smoking a chimney, swore like a trooper. How can you get away with that? But they do. It was...
The mind boggles, because when you say Father Ted, I then remember the others in the cast, and which were you?
Was there any Protestant lessons in that?
I don't know.
It was good.
Probably the housekeeper.
But I think we kind of all felt, he'd been a number of years in a parish in County Clare, big deal to come from County Clare.
It's a nice place.
But to come from there to the British Army, that's a big deal. So you have to be very careful with what he was doing, because there was still, as we know, the dynamic, the Irish dynamic is pretty intense.
There's a lot of different dynamics involved, and you were involved in a lot of different and difficult situations.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about one or two of them?
Well, we first started, we were posted to Canterbury, had to get the road out of the south, pair nurse that. We went down to the south of England, Kent, to posted to the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, and we were there for 3.5 years, and it kind of set the bar really high for us. It was like the best posting we had. It was so good.
Posh?
Well, they were posh officers. I mean, and being part of the officers' mess with the Queen's Commission, being saluted by soldiers, that was hard. I had to really get my head around that. It took months. I thought, I can't believe I'm cutting about and being saluted. This is not right. But the good thing is we get out of it. We're never referred to as...
Good practice for back, though.
Oh, yes. Morning, sir, and all that. And they don't call you sir in the force, you're called padre. Okay. And that's how you get round it. And if you're ever called sir, you're able to correct them. Don't make a big thing of it. You just say, there's no sir. That's these guys. I'm not in charge of anyone. But it was because of the royalties' fondness for clergy that the Queen's, what they call it again? There's, what's these? I can't remember what they're called now. There's a set of orders that dictate basically how the military operate. And they say that clergy are to be commissioned into the army and bear the Queen's Commission and be treated with due respect. So you're an officer cutting about with rank. So the boys react, they see the pips, they react. So you have to kind of get through all that. And that takes a bit of time.
Obviously very different to being a minister in a free church congregation in the north of Scotland. You are there with people, some who don't want you to be there, but you are with them at their lowest moments.
Yes.
And have to deal with very difficult situations.
Yeah, I mean, we were there for a number of weeks already, and I thought we are so out of our comfort zone here. You know, they're doing, but you either engage with battalion life or you don't. And if you don't engage, it's all over. You shouldn't be there. There's no point being there. So we had to engage in ways. So for instance, our Sabbatarianism, how Sunday was used and treated, we had to really think that through. Because Sunday for us was an opportunity. It was a small church in the camp, so we ran a wee church in there and started a Sunday school. We started getting them in. But we found you're up against everything from archery practice to rugby games to everything was going on. Sunday was a full-on day in there. Same as it is now everywhere, pretty much in the mainland certainly. And that was hard because there was no obvious way in, and we had to just develop friendships. So you get out of your comfort zone and you realise, right, we're here to minister and serve in the army. So we're not in the manse anymore. So we're on the married quarters, the troops are there and they're wondering what you're doing here. So win them round. So my charm, my banter, my sense of humour, my good looks got us there in the end, Kenny. And I took up refereeing toward the end of my time. Enjoyed that, it was good. I ran out of yellow cards for swearing, had to stop booking them for swearing. We got nobody left in the pitch at the end of half time. But I can tell you a few things that we had to deal with. Before deployment, there was a lot of deployments going on then. Afghanistan came round too quick, and we were deploying, and we put a brigade in and a brigade out every 6 to 7 months. So that's 4,500 troops in, 4,500 out. And within that 4,500 there'd be a chaplaincy team of 10 to 12. So you had to be deployable, and that meant being fit, and I was a lot thinner than you see. No, honestly I was. And so we had to be fit, ready to go, you were jabbed like a pincushion, all the meds, everything ready to go, out we go in deployment, 6.5 months in Helmand 3 times, once to Kabul. But before we deployed in 2010, we had an awful run. We had, I think if I remember rightly, there were 3 deaths in the battalion, these were the Scots Guards, and there were 3 deaths in the battalion before we deployed. And they were tragic deaths. There was a pub fight, there was 2 fights, one the heart condition, top dead in a train run. And it was really grim. And then we deployed, well, one company deployed before the rest, and they had a fatality before the rest of us had deployed, so that came back, and the morale was just so low. And then we deployed, and it was a very bad summer, because that was 2010. There was a lot of fatalities, a lot of real life-changing injuries, and you're in the midst of that. One dynamic I remember is that one of the sergeant majors had his son as a warrior driver in the patrol base down the road, about 2 miles away. Every time he heard a boom, you can imagine he was in tenterhooks because they were targeting the warriors. IEDs, they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, of course, they discovered how to defeat the armour and the warrior. Because, the Taliban talk about, tin pot warriors, they were savvy, brave people. And they figured out how to best attack ISAF. That was the International Security Assistance Force, that's what we were. They were at the behest of the Afghan government, which a lot of people have forgotten, by the way. The only reason we were there is that the Afghan government pleaded for NATO to come in and shore up the nation against the Taliban insurgency. So I went in, they were whooshed out, they just kept coming back in unbelievable numbers. There was the numbers, there were so many. They could recruit, hand over fist in the madrasas in Pakistan, around the border region, and they would come in their hundreds, if not thousands. Every fighting season, every summer was brutal, and the people were just crushed by it, and you could see it. So in the midst of that, dealing with loss of life, injury, it was very hard because men, we don't do feelings, we don't do crime, we don't sit down and have a good old cry together. So when there was a death and the boys were all gathered in and they were shrieking like this and tears and snot, and they felt humiliated because they were being seen crying, but they were crying because their mate had been killed, and you'd get off the back of the wagon and say, right, Barney, go and give us a few words. Like, what? And the boys are there, they're avoiding eye contact, they can't deal with what's going on, and you're just trying to take a breath, create that space to just take a moment, take a knee, and they would all let you play with it then, every one of them, no bother. We'd have us remembrance service at night because of the threat. You couldn't do it in the daylight, it's that dark, and close in, what we call a hollow square. You're in there, praying for the deceased's family, praying for the boy's safety and success. And then within weeks, what I would notice, I'd be back in that patrol base, and you'd be doing a service, there'd be about 2 men and a dog. And you saw there that what kept everyone going was, well, it won't be me, it'll always be someone else. That was the mindset probably of everybody out there. It'll be someone else, it won't be me. So they were rack and ruin at the point of death, but then they very quickly, hardness of heart, moved on. And that's quite hard to deal with.
I could, and maybe for another time, spend a long time talking about this particular episode of your life, because, it is so interesting to us all. But then, the time came for you to change again. How long were you an army chaplain? 12
years. The 12 years went from Canterbury to Carteret, down to Ipswich, back to Carteret, back to Edinburgh, and then that was 4 moves for the family, children, different primary school each time, and then we came to Edinburgh because by then I thought, this is enough, it's too much for the family, we're moving every 2 years, it's ridiculous, deploying as well, and so they said, go to Edinburgh, this is the sting, you can go to 2 Scots, the Royal Highland Fusiliers in Edinburgh, we'll set you down there, it does mean you have to go back to Afghanistan. Well, again, this is my 3rd deployment, but we took that because it meant we could be based in Edinburgh. And Aileen sister was in Edinburgh, it was much closer to home. So I finished that, I deployed twice with 2 Scots from Edinburgh, and then I was moved to Carteret Infantry Training Centre, and then I was moved down to 12 Infantry Brigade Headquarters. And I took that because it was a promotion. Oh, you're the big cheese, you're going to be great down there. There's no one else can do this job, Colin, you're the man. And ego fest, oh, this is great, I'll do that, yeah. It was a big mistake, it was rubbish. It was the worst posting of the lot. And I was in an officer's mess all the time. There were no soldiers, because they were in the brigade headquarters. They're all officers. And I didn't really get on with officers. I didn't really like them. They were great, man. There's nothing I doing. And the family are in Edinburgh, so I'm commuting from Salisbury up to Bristol, flying to Edinburgh, and then coming back down on a Sunday night to drive to Bulford to be back in the office on Monday morning. It was crazy. But a lot of military families do that.
But 12 years of what anybody else would say would be an exciting life. And then you come back and you go to Leith.
Oh, I know. Well, the good old people of Leith, they took a punt on me, I'll tell you. I'd been away from the church for so long. When I went through the process of putting back on what we have to be on the register of ministers open to call, so I got a wee bit of publicity through that, but then that's it. It's just out in the ether. Either someone will approach you or they won't. And Leith asked me to come up and take a service when we were in Edinburgh, and I just went from there to a call as I signed off. I had to give 9 months' notice. So finished in the army, came into the reserves and stayed with 7 Scots for a while, and I was minister in Leith for 4 years. Well, 2 years, because the next 2 were COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Hips or hearts?
oh, they're heavies down there. Oh, goodness. Leith walking on Wednesday night, just festooned with green and white scarves, and like, oh no, the hypebees are home. Some of the pubs around the church are just, oh, it's odd. Some of them are pretty rough.
Well, I've got 2 good friends, and they're Hibs supporters, Matthew MacIomhair, from Point. In fact, I believe he's at Point this week because they had an event celebrating some women's football ones this week, and Lord Mingdonish, from Rev Colin Macleod from Skye. So they do have quite respectable people there. So,
I've got 2 uncles who are Hibs fans, and my first cousin played for them for 7 or 8 years at Ali. So good connection there, but. Not
but the thing is, Leeds was I was going to say, almost dull.
Oh.
After the excitement of the life we'd had for the previous 12 years. I don't mean that, but it's very different.
A change. It was a big change. We knew we were coming back to it, but we didn't, because we'd been away from the church for 12 years, and we came back to find quite a different church. The dynamic, the culture was changing, still is, but Leith, all the change had just swirled around Leith, and they hadn't been touched by it. So everybody else had moved on, if you like. All the changes had been incorporated, the music, the hymns, and the church planting mindset, the outward facing. Leith, circle the wagons. They shall not pass.
That's why they got an ex-soldier.
Oh, well, I don't know. They just took me because nobody else would go, probably. I don't know. But we were fortunate to go because we enjoy being with the people there. But it was so difficult because you're surrounded by tower blocks, pubs, restaurants, clubs, cafes, and I'd be down in Leith Walk and I'd go, what do I do? So I had many days like that. How do we? You can't go into tower blocks. You can't get in. You can't go chapping doors like we did yesterday around town. You can't do it. There's no access. You have to. It's word of mouth in the cities that bring people in, and we had to start from scratch, get the website up and running. There was a lot to do there, and we did a wee bit then COVID. Kind of just bushed everything. That was it.
I go to Livingston when I'm away with my sons, and you said they're only maybe 25, 30 people there. And I was saying, how different these congregations are to what we have here.
There are a lot of churches at that. Sort of free churches, I don't speak of others, but there are a lot of small, struggling congregations on the mainland. There really is. Skye as well, and it's tough going because you throw the doors open, you go on there, you do everything you can, tea, coffee, house groups, you do everything, all that stuff. We updated the church, took out the Seich and Moor, is that right?
Yes.
Well, we took that out. Whoa, that didn't go down well, but we took it out, and then we had a lectern, big screen behind it. And it just changed the atmospherics a little bit, so we were going in the right direction for a city-centred church. COVID stopped us dead. And it took a lot. We were kind of... The last I heard, in fact, Leith is closing next year. Yeah, that's what I was.
But your Gallagher's coming on Seich and Moor. That's quite an achievement after a year. And then, after all that experience in the war zones, you got an invitation to go to the battlefield that is back for each other.
Oh man, I had no idea. But I'm glad I kept the body armour and helmet.
Can you remember the things, when it started?
I'll tell you what. I came up to back for a communion before COVID, and I was a bit blown away because the crowd in the church. I remember particularly that Sunday night, and I was a bit nervous in the pulpit anyway. And you gave out the first psalm, and it was as if the whole gallery stood up, and I realised what a crowd was in here.
And your mother was there as well.
Mammy was there, and Aidan was. We were still in Leith, of course, so it really made an impression. It really did. But I don't even really just started in Leith then, so that was there. It was always there. So then when I think Ewan said, "Would you come up for a communion?" When you get asked back to a place, you always feel in the army it's a re-show. Was I not good enough the first time? So you've got to go back and do it again. So that was just a great opportunity. So the seed was planted, but I'll be honest with you, I got the shock of my life when I was told my name was in here. I didn't expect that. Never saw that coming. Any more than I saw him back to the army in 2005. Never saw that coming. And I thought, is this what's going on here? And then you're put in a position where, it's very subjective this, I know, forgive me, but you feel that, well, am I right, or are they all wrong, or are they right and I'm wrong? How can this, so you're working through this. And the way it worked for here was, I had almost the whole summer, because the presbytery meeting it gave me like 3 months or 2 months to really think things through and pray and think and pray and panic and think and pray. And I felt at the end of that process that I had to accept the call, that it was the right thing to do. And so I did. Without any further ado, the presbytery started, and it was still online then because of COVID. I accepted the call, and then went from there to our van with all our worldly belongings arrived here 24 hours before we did, and I still feel bad about that. And Ian thinks that I engineered this, but it was the removal guy. He shifted his booking without telling us. So we were both meant to come over on the Wednesday. He turned up at the house on Monday. Oh, I've changed the booking, I'm going over tomorrow. Okay, so I phoned up Cal, I couldn't get on. So we couldn't get over to the Wednesday. So my van arrived here in the howling gale. It was raining, can you believe that? Pouring rain. And the men turned up and emptied the van, and we were still in Edinburgh. We were, oh, dear me. So I suppose in one way it's a great start, but in other ways it's a wee bit embarrassing.
There's another Gaelic word that I can think of in terms of that, shalta. Do you know what that means?
No.
Funny.
Well, yeah, I'm not maybe I don't know that. No, that wasn't, I couldn't believe it. But then, I'll tell you, that kind of just, it kind of set us. Then we realised that we'd realised before, but we realised what's been a continual theme here from me and Davy. It's been a quick year, a very happy year. And we have been absolutely blown away with the goodwill that has been shown to us here from the minute we stepped off the boat, even though I was a day behind the van. I think they eventually forgave me. I think, I don't know, I'll take the fifth on that. But there's been such goodwill, Kenny. There really has.
You've just been here a year, and that's why we've had this opportunity. You've done an awful lot in that year. In fact, some of us were involved with you very quickly with the War Memorial Service or things like that. So you've got an opportunity to meet people that you probably wouldn't have met so quickly otherwise. How useful was that?
Very useful. That was, again, seeing something out with the church's four walls at the War Memorial. I'd never been here at Remembrance. So to see so many people gathered in, it was really moving. It was so good to see that, because sometimes, you know, there's a good attitude toward Remembrance generally, but sometimes places away they don't react and respond as much as you'd like to see. There's certainly ex-military we get big on Remembrance. We want to see the fallen remembered and their sacrifice honoured, because that's what it's about. It's not about glorifying war. That is not what it's about. The Poppy speaks to us about the loss of life, and that we will remember those who laid down their lives for our freedoms, which we enjoy every day. So the remembrance is massive in the military, it really is. And when you're there in the service and the widows come in and they lay their poppies down and they've got babies with them, and they lost their weird one the boy who was killed in Afghanistan, and his wife was pregnant, about 7 months pregnant with her first child. So she got the chat on the door. Can you imagine? And then we're all in Afghan knowing that this is happening, so it was horrible. She's getting the chat on the door. Sorry to say that your husband's gone. And she freaked out. And then we came back on Ireland. You had about 8 to 10 days off during a 6-month tour. Went to visit her, and the baby had been born by then. Tiny wee thing. So I remember the wee guy, he was 11 now, 12. And you deal with people, and then she would come to the remembrance service. Now that was powerful. When, you know, we're all there with our poppies and reeds. When you see a widow take the poppy off her lapel and put it down, and that, it's heartbreaking. And so we remember the fallen. In that way we honour their memory. That's all we can do. It's what the minimum we must do. So that was a great opportunity to be involved in that first week or so. I think you came in, Kenny, with Neil, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I went through that. Yeah. And you're going to be away this weekend?
Yes.
Another party?
Another party, yes.
Oh.
But fortunately we've got Mo. You know,
yes.
I wasn't meant to say that, was I?
Yeah.
That Mo was going to do.
Oh, yeah.
No, well, we could go on for a long time. I think we've probably gone on longer than we were meant to, but I am sure everybody in here would agree with me that we would listen to it for much longer, and there's a lot more questions to be asked. It's a year since you came, and I'm sure I speak for everybody else, and wishing you many long and happy years here with us. We probably won't make it easy for you all the time, but life has its bumps, as we all know. But can I thank you on my own behalf, and I'm sure everybody else's behalf also, for being with us, becoming part of us so soon, and long may it continue. And thank you very much indeed for allowing me to do this and having this privilege tonight.
Well, thank you, Kenny. Thanks very much indeed.
Well, folks, I think you can see that we made a good choice in getting Coinneach MacIomhair to do the I can just thank him very much indeed for his contribution tonight. It was really good. Thank you very much, Ken. Excellent.
Okay.
And the one thing that became apparent to me was that we could have had 3 or 4 sessions to get it really all sorted out. And thank you too, Colin, for opening up, because that really meant a big deal, a lot to us there. Thank you. Now, how do we finish off? Any?
Yeah, we pray then.
Say a quick prayer then to finish off. Lord our God, we thank you for the opportunity we have at this time to gather together. We're privileged to hear the life story in short of a man called to your service. And we ask you to bless it to us now as we reflect on it, each one of us. We ask you to be with each one of us as we journey back to our homes, and be thankful we have homes. When we think of the people who are in places like Ukraine and Afghanistan and Iraq and Yemen, and we could go on for quite a while, and we see what these people have to put up with and the suffering they have at the hands of their neighbours, while we sit happily here in quiet and with thankfulness, with most of the things that we need, and far more than we need. We ask you to bless us now as we part, and bless Kenny, and bless Colin too, and encourage them and keep the devil from them. For Jesus' sake, amen.
Amen.